Hi guys, this is Shoshanah Shear from Chesed Ve'emet, from the Women's Division, which you can find on beahappymom.com and also Creations from Jerusalem. Those are the two websites that I'm in the process of revising, revamping, adjusting. In this little video, I wanted to share some updates about our crowd fundraiser campaign and to answer two different kinds of questions that have come to us. I hope to keep it as short as possible. I'm working on a far more fun video with a lot more images, little video clips, illustrations that I hope will start to build a picture as to what we really are working on. In the meantime, I've had these questions and I thought I'd use the opportunity to answer them, and perhaps it'll answer questions for some other people also. The first question came from two different women asking how the crowd fundraiser is going, and firstly, thank you so much for taking an interest and for sending in those questions. It gives us a lot of encouragement that there are people who are interested in what we're doing. The next two questions were, why don't we just clean up and paint over where the mold is and be able to stay where we are? So let's answer the first question first and then get to the second question, and I hope that a few other details in the video will explain a little bit more as to why we're doing this campaign and why it's important. The first thing is, how is the campaign going? Well, the interesting thing is, it took me quite a long time to get to do this campaign. I couldn't decide which platform to use or which angle to use, whether to do it as a Kickstarter for our business. We're not completely at the beginning of what we're doing, but I'm making a lot of changes and changing direction as to what aspects of my skills and work I'm using in order to reach the goals that we have. So that's taken a lot of time and rethinking and reworking. To a certain extent, it is a Kickstarter, and we're needing sort of startup funding for what it is we're really doing. But it's not completing at the started phase, so I wasn't sure whether to call it a Kickstarter. Also, I had considered perhaps doing something focusing on the books that we're bringing out and perhaps getting sponsorship towards them, focusing on promotional needs, improving the software that I'm using, a couple of other things related to the books themselves, but we have other needs and goals also, so that wasn't the only thing. So eventually I came up with the idea of once again putting out a campaign towards our moving to more suitable apartment, more suitable location, more suitable everything as to where we're living and where we're working. And since we work from home, it's all kind of fits together. But we do have a much larger goal, and I want to just quickly share a post that my husband saw this morning, and then I'll get back to those two questions. The post was somebody who, unfortunately, for whatever reason, was selling off his full library of his Torah Forum, and he had some really, really nice books in his library. He's obviously put a lot of thought into what books he has in his home, and that reminded us of where we were when we were in Beitar before we moved back to Jerusalem. We had this thrift store, kind of a spin on a thrift store. It wasn't completely a thrift store, that I was creating partly to fund what we were doing to help orphan Khatanim Kalot, and partly also using the new items that we received to give out to help to start the homes of orphans at the time that they were getting married, and also a few other situations, orphans who were younger, or a couple of other situations that we also gave out items. And concurrently with that, you might remember we had the bridal gowns that we were working with that I had to let go of because we just didn't have the space for them. We also had another project that we had started, and it was all part of a center that we were working towards. And the other service was starting a lending library. We had collected up a certain amount of books. Some of them were not 100% in keeping with what we wanted, and we had permission to be able to sell them. So together with my own books that I'm selling off, and one reason for restructuring my website is to find the right way to be able to present selling off certain second-hand items, some of them being books, but not only books, to put that into my online store, because a couple of people didn't understand, why have you got second-hand things with art, and why do you have art as well as knitted things and sewn things and beaded things? That didn't make sense to a couple of people. So to make things a whole lot clearer and avoid getting more criticism on my website, I've been working on revamping, improving the website. One of the reasons for doing the campaign is to be able to outsource for certain tasks, because I just have so many things that we're working on that I really do need to outsource a couple of things to other people. And along the way, it's been quite a journey because of changes that have happened in WordPress, having to change the theme, not knowing all the tech stuff that I'm needing, not being trained in web design, and learning and relearning. And each question I come up against as to improving my website leads me to inner work or revising or changing or altering. And so it's been a time process. But this whole process reminded us that we were starting this lending library. And it's not only about selling off the books that didn't suit the library. The majority of the books do, and we'd love to be lending them out. The problem is this apartment is just too small. You can't be lending books from a box or two sitting on the floor in the corner, because we don't have the space to set it up all correctly. So how about you imagine a different scenario where there's much more space, and there's not only 2 bookshelves with a couple of boxes in front of the bookshelves, but there's many more bookshelves. There's enough space for perhaps a sofa and some comfortable chairs, a couple of tables where Yidden can come in and sit down and read the books more effectively. They could have some time to read, perhaps have a cup of coffee, not over the book, obviously, but to relax a little bit, to have the space to read, to interact with us when they're choosing their books. Or they could go into a store on the side that has our art and creative gifts, perhaps with a little bit of a gallery. And how about if I had a full art studio come workshop, where I could be producing all of the art that I have in mind to do, instead of only doing small images, small pictures. I could do larger ones. I could put out my sewing machine and actually sew up the lovely fabric that I have into a range of different creative gifts. That has a whole lot more potential. It has a potential not only for the skills and the ideas of what we're wanting to share and to give and to have as our contribution to the world, but also to be able to help a lot more people. Instead of having a bargain store kind of situation where the items that I'm selling that we'd collected up were all sold at really, really bargain prices, and unfortunately not appreciated as being such bargain prices. But we're having items that are new, not just new and collected, but new that we've created ourselves, and we can sell at much better prices. A piece of art, for example, could sell for a whole lot more than little, 60 shekels or something that we sold some of the really quality items for. And that would enable us to fund what we're doing, to obtain the advances in technology, the software that we need, to outsource for, whether it's assistance on the website or assistance with marketing our books, whatever it is. There's opportunity for us to be outsourcing, which gives parnasa to other Yidden. There are all sorts of things and all sorts of angles to the work that we're doing. And this reminds me of some campaigns that go up that some Chabad houses, for example, managed to do in just 36 hours. So having our campaign up for 30 days is really quite sufficient. There's some who pull off being able to bring in sufficient to build full centers, revamp their services, improve everything that they're doing. And it does happen. And so that's why I'm putting this out there. To get back to the question, how is our campaign going? Well, compared to that campaign I did in 2020, we've got a lot more than the $95 that I raised in 2020. At that stage, it wasn't enough to move, and the amount that we've brought in so far is also not enough for us to move. It might help half of outsourcing to improve some of the things on my website, or I don't know, perhaps one piece of technology or something, but it's certainly not going to meet our goals to be able to move. For that, we really do need a whole lot more support, and that doesn't have to only be donations. We have books on Amazon that you could purchase. You can subscribe to our YouTube channels. You could write a review of one of our books. You could hire my husband for his coaching service or for the Torah Shiurim that he gives. I also do a certain amount of coaching that's on hold at the moment while I'm doing all this revamping and figuring out just how much coaching I will be doing, because a lot more of my time and effort is going into improving my art skills, doing the paintings that I'm wanting to do, learning some mixed media that I'm wanting to create, a whole lot of other content, online courses. There's a whole lot of exciting stuff happening. It has a lot of potential. I'd like to invite you to join the journey. I have a number of other videos on this channel. Please do like this video if you've enjoyed it. Share it with your friends if you know anybody else who might be interested or able to assist. Subscribe to the channel. As I say, subscribing to the channels is a very easy way to be able to assist us with what we're doing. And remember, the wonderful quality that Am Yisrael has, any time that we come up with problems, as does happen in the history of the Jewish nation, is we tend to build. And it's another reason as to why right now, while there's a war going on, we're focusing on doing the crowd fundraiser campaign to get to progress, to get to that next step, not only in our own living conditions, but also that we can share what we are effectively. And that comes to the second question, which is, why don't we just paint up, do the repairs? To a certain extent, because we're renters, we can't just do what we want to do. But aside from that, because there's a whole lot more that we could really be offering if we had the right space, the right tools. We can put out my sewing machine, have an easel that I can put up to paint larger paintings, and be able to sell more effectively, to have that store, to have the lending library, to be able to invite my husband's students to come and join us for a meal or a whatever, to come and schmooze with their rabbi when they happen to be in Yerushalayim visiting from overseas. That's what being Jewish is all about. That's what's offering the service that we do is all about. And in our tiny apartment with a very tiny round table that we use for juggling our computers, the artwork, everything happens on this one tiny table, and it's just not large enough to have anybody else come and visit. So being Yidden who like to be able to host, who like to be able to share of all of our experiences, our skills, our gifts, we have got a much larger goal in mind, which will require even more than what the current goal is on our crowd fundraiser. How is the campaign going? When only about 5% to a mini goal. So help us to reach our goal, help us to get further, and join us as we do what we can to build and to help to do our little bit of effort towards hastening a little bit closer towards the time of the coming of the Mashiach, because that's really what it's all about, isn't it? To spread Torah, to spread acts of kindness, and to unite as Am Yisrael, learning Torah, putting it into practice, and helping to build this precious land of ours. Thank you for watching. Thank you if you are interested in any of the work that we're doing, in anything that I've shared. You're welcome to put a comment in the comments below. The link to the crowd fundraiser is in the description, as is a link to my husband's book, my mother's book, My book I'll be sharing again once I've finished a few revisions that I'm in the process of doing, and there's a whole lot more to come. So do subscribe to the channel and click the alarm, the notification that you can hear about the next videos that come out, because I have a lot more that I'm going to be sharing in future videos, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. Ciao for now.